Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews coming at you guys with Suits Season 7 Episode 3 review. Alright, so I personally really enjoyed this episode. Definitely probably not the best episode of this season so far. Episode 1 was very good. But yeah, it was a good episode nonetheless. And also I am sort of hopping into this midway here. Episode 1 and Episode 2 I haven't had a chance. I didn't get a chance to review, but I'm just gonna start episode 3 and do the rest of the season here. And I've been watching Suits. I mean, since probably season 3, I think was live. So it's been a long time, about 4 years. And I love the show. So getting into this now, gonna be uploading reviews for the rest of the season. So just so you guys know. But anyways, let's hop right into this. So for this one, I'm going to sort of do the storylines instead of maybe following chronological order. Just makes it easier for me in this type of show, because it is a drama, but sometimes we see some other stuff that's not really the same as most dramas. As you know, nothing really big happened, like no one dies and stuff like that. Although we did have a death in this one, but you know, whatever, like that. So let's get to the first one here. So Lewis mudding with Harvey and Alex at the beginning. I enjoyed this scene. Right away, I knew that it was like a dream or something. Excuse me, because I knew Harvey would never go mudding with Lewis. I like the second we see that in the Suits series. I think that's like the finale episode of the whole series. Like, there's no way Harvey would ever go mudding with him, right? So, um, so we see that, and that's a dream sequence, obviously, and then Alex comes. And then obviously it goes to real time, and Lewis is talking to his therapist. Now I know that it's like Mr. Lipsching or something like that. I don't know, but I can't pronounce it. I don't know how to spell it, so I'm just gonna say therapist for now because I don't even really want to try. And they made it like a weird name just for Lewis, right? It makes sense. It's a good name. I like it, but yeah, I can't I can't pronounce that, so whatever. But yeah, so then we see him talking with his therapist, and that's a big storyline in this episode, kind of building towards maybe something in the future. Now this is kind of cool because we saw Harvey with the therapist, obviously, as we see her in this season too. Now Paula, that was sort of last season's big thing there, big storyline, and now we're getting Lewis with his therapist, which we haven't seen before. He's talked about him, I think, in previous season, maybe just last season, but we are starting to see it now in scenes. So maybe that is a clue for what we're going to see for the rest of the season. I'm not sure yet, but I do enjoy it. I think it's an interesting way to look at Lewis for us, and we haven't really seen much of that. So anyways, just thought I'd mention that real quick. That was opening of the show. And then we have the whole Rachel and Donna and Stephanie Patel storyline there. So basically, I'll sort of just go over it briefly. Basically, I mean, Rachel comes at the beginning and finds out that the Stephanie girl, she's a fourth year associate, she says, and Rachel's giving her first year things to do. So I wasn't totally sure why Rachel is even giving her first year things, you know? Like, if she knows she's a fourth year, then I don't get the whole point of trying to give her first year stuff just to make her, like, mad. I don't know, but anyways, she's doing that, and of course, she finds out, being as smart as she is, Rachel finds out that she's pawning it off on other people. Which I didn't get that at first. I thought she just was bad at her job and she didn't know how to do it. But then later we learn that she's a fourth year and she doesn't want to waste her time, right? So it makes sense. Like, I get her outlook on it. Anyways, so then that happens. So then later on, of course, we see that the second strike or whatever, that was sort of a reoccurring thing that Donna was saying. The second strike happened there where she pawned it off again on a different associate, or a different first year associate, not Jason this time. That was the first guy. So then, of course, Rachel gets mad, and then we have that whole scene where she comes in to the bullpen, even. So I was ready for a Lewis scene, of like just ripping on Stephanie. I was ready for that Rachel power scene to come, but it didn't come because Donna interrupted her. And I don't know, I didn't like it, of course. It was definitely the wrong thing to do for Donna, because like that just takes all the power out of Rachel's sales, and she's supposed to be the head of the associates. You're a secretary and you're coming down. At least that's my opinion. I mean, she's a lot more. Don't get me wrong, but her role technically before this season, secretary, and she's coming down and kind of bossing them around. So I don't know. I thought Stephanie had a point when she said, I'm not taking orders from a person who hasn't even been a lawyer or whatever, right? I kind of get where she's coming from, to be honest, but, that's that. So, anyway, so then that happens. Donna talks her back into sort of reality and, enforces Stephanie a little bit. And, of course, Rachel and her then have that washroom scene. I love the washroom scenes in this show, by the way. Like, every single time they're in the washroom, some big fight happens. Like, not a physical. Well, there have been physical fights as well, Lewis and Harvey. But, but like, there's a fight every single time in the washroom, and it's kind of sad. Like, people can't just go to the washroom and do whatever they, do their business and come out. Like, I guess not at PSL, Pearson Spectre Lit. But anyways, big washroom fight there, and then they walk out on each other, and Rachel hits her with the, you weren't prepared for your role either, and walks out. So I thought that was pretty good jab, to be honest, for Rachel in there after she's upset like that. So then after that, I mean, they meet in the office, in Rachel's office again, and Rachel says, I want to focus on being a lawyer now since I've just freshly become one, and I don't think I should handle the associates. So Donna takes them over, which I still think is unrealistic. Like, she's now the the COO or whatever. Last episode she got COO instead of senior partner. I think senior partner was ridiculous, by the way. But COO now, I think COO is her role. And so now she's taking over the associate. So I think that's a little unrealistic. But I don't know. Maybe I don't know what COO is. I don't know. But anyway, so she takes over the associates, and then of course, as we see at the very end there, her first thing of business is firing Stephanie. And this is interesting because Rachel says at first she doesn't want her first thing as head of associates to fire someone, and that's exactly what Donna does. So I thought that was kind of cool that they mixed that in there. And yeah, so Stephanie's gone. I love the whole scene there. You're fired. She just put her foot down, and it was sympathetic too. And Stephanie needed to go. If she's gonna do that, 3 strikes, as Donna was saying the whole time. 3 strikes, you're out. And she was out. So that's basically that whole storyline there. I did enjoy it. I thought it was good to have the women characters have their own sort of storyline, and then you have Alex, Lewis, and Mike and Harvey all in theirs. So I thought that was cool, and both stories are very interesting equally, right? So I really like that. So now let's get into the Mike and Harvey, the one for me, one for you deal, basically. And I think this was actually good. I didn't really get this, to be honest. The season 6 finale, I didn't get that it was like one pro bono, one business thing or whatever, right? I didn't really get that in the season 6, but they sort of are like really drilling it into us this season. Because when he said like one for me, one for you, I didn't know. Like, I thought Mike would choose one and then Harvey would choose one, but it's not. So anyway, so I thought that was kind of cool. But then Harvey later in the episode drops the deal. So anyway, we'll get into that. But basically what happens is Harvey finds a new case. Some guy's trying to get out of a deal. And of course Mike finds the what's going on there, gives it to Harvey, helps him out, and then Harvey gives him permission to take this pro bono case, to take Chris Reyes, who's the son of the Mr. Reyes he meets with, and this Chris Reyes has died in prison, and they give the reason as heart attack. So obviously his dad doesn't buy it. He said his parole was in 1 month. I don't think he would die like that. And he was only, I think he said he was 42 or 46, something like that. So that's not, that's not that old at all for a heart attack, right? So it kind of makes sense. So then we have, so then he talks to the prison guards about it. And obviously he gets shut down by all three of them, and they're not very happy at all about him coming there. He was probably about to get beat up there. It looked like he's just there in his trench coat, and they're all walking out. I thought it was pretty cool. So, but then he said later on that actually was getting ready to so that he could talk to the one guy in the bar alone. So he basically set that up. So those three saw what was going on with the one guy who was the head of the guards. So then basically from that meeting with the head of the guards, the guy, basically then he says that the prison is understaffed and that they only care about their bottom line, so the money they're making and stuff like that. So that's pretty interesting. That gives Mike a huge upper or advantage, I guess, in the case, and tells Mike exactly what he needs to go after, which is pretty big. So that's a big thing there. So then, but once he gets that, we find out basically that Alex has a client, a developing client, who who built the jail, or who does repairs on it and stuff like that, the building. So, which basically means that that the client wants to drop Alex if Mike doesn't drop the pro bono that he's working on. So basically, of course, this becomes a big issue, and then we see Harvey, and this is I'd say his worst episode of this season so far. I mean, him as managing partner, we've seen a lot of weaknesses, but we've seen some strengths as well, but probably more weaknesses. And this episode just nails that in again, that he's not quite ready. I mean, he sides with his friend here instead of honoring Mike's deal, and he's known Mike for years, right? They've been really good friends. So I think it's the wrong decision that Harvey made, but at least he enforces it. At least he doesn't go back on it. That's one thing I liked about this. But then that's what happens. So Harvey says, no, okay, Alex, I will, I'll take your side, Mike. And he goes to Mike and says, he needs to drop the case. Obviously, Mike isn't happy, as he always is with these pro bonos. He gets all touchy and whatever, but that's who Mike is. We accept that, of course, and he's a great guy. Maybe just not built for the whole PSL life, but anyway. So then, of course, Lewis. Now I thought this was pretty interesting that Mike and Lewis kind of work together here. I'm not sure why Lewis called Mike there. I'm not sure why we never got that far in that scene. We never saw that, but. Mike and Lewis basically meet up. Mike tells Lewis what's going on, and of course Lewis, knowing, loving Mike for some reason. And I mean, Lewis and Mike have not talked this whole season, and I don't even remember season 6. I'm trying to remember, but I don't think they even interacted that much either. So they're sort of two characters are becoming a little estranged. So it was cool to see that relationship kind of come up again. In the show. And so of course Lewis tries to help out Mike, goes to Harvey, and Donna of course walks in. She's everywhere. She comes in a bullpen when Rachel's there. She comes in the office and says, keep your voices down or whatever. So she's everywhere, whatever. And then so basically Harvey rules out Donna and Lewis and says it's not a vote, and says some mean things to Lewis, some personal things about Alex. Which I think was just over the line. I don't think he needed to say that to Lewis, and he knows, that that's going to hurt Lewis, so he's doing it purposely. But that's Harvey. He wanted his way, I guess, right? So anyways, so I think Harvey comes off as a dick in that situation, and he says, to Donna, it's not a vote or whatever. So that's pretty hurtful as well. And then of course Lewis, smashes or throws the phone off his desk and gets mad, and that sort of spouts the ending there with Lewis. But then first, oh yes, and I also didn't completely touch on this, but yes, Alex and Harvey, we see the little scene with them closing that lawyer that tries to get out of the deal. That was cool. See, how they work together, sort of like a Mike and Harvey situation there. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but it was sort of the same sort of thing. But the one guy, they play off each other, and it works. So I thought that was interesting, sort of showing us that maybe Harvey's getting used to Alex now and they're friends. By the way, I don't think they've ever mentioned this Alex guy And apparently Harvey and him have been friends for years. So I don't think in the show they ever mentioned Alex, but that's just me. Maybe I missed it. But like I don't know. It's kind of just a new thing I guess they put in for this season. But anyways, yeah, they closed the lawyer. That was an interesting scene there. And then of course how that whole thing ends. Then of course is Harvey sticks to his guns, and then Mike hands the case over to Oliver at the clinic. Now I don't get why Oliver is so mad at Mike. Really, I don't really get that conflict there. I think Mike did what he was best for him. I don't know why Oliver wouldn't be happy to him or for him. Sorry. Now Mike did do some bad things to Oliver, kind of lied to him a little bit. But I think Oliver needs to just sort of get over it. Honestly, he knows Mike's a good guy, and he knows, you know, he knows that he wants to do the pro bonos as well, right? And like he wants to be that kind of lawyer. So I think he needs to get over it personally. But that that's just me. Yeah. So he hands the case over to Oliver after Oliver finally accepts it, and then later on, Harvey says that he wants Mike to sign an agreement saying he had nothing to do with the case, so they could give that to Alex. And of course, later on in the episode, then Alex and Mike sort of make up over it. Mike goes to Alex's office, sort of hits him with a little bit of a smart ass comment, saying like, "Here's my next 15 lawsuits" or whatever. I think it said if your brother's I forget. It was like your grandma or whatever shops at the same store as number 12. Something like that. It was a really cool comment, kind of funny. Of course, Mike, slides those in there all the time. He's pretty sly. And but they end up making up, and Alex tells him, I don't like this either, and whatever. So that's good. I like that they're sort of on good terms here to begin, because they're both going to be Harvey's main or best friends, I would say, for this season at least. So that's good that they make up over it, and of course Mike hands that agreement to Alex, and everything is basically good there. So yeah, but that was a really interesting one there. But it sort of shows how Harvey's not. He's against Mike now, and he's on Alex's side. He's against the whole firm, really, right? Donna, Lewis, everyone. So the only one he hasn't upset is Rachel in this episode, really. But yeah, so that's that. And what else do we have? We have, oh yes, the whole Paula and Harvey storyline. So I thought that was interesting. I still am torn on this relationship. I get it, that, they knew each other for a long time. Harvey really liked her. And of course she liked him because, he's a handsome, rich lawyer guy, what's not to love. But, yeah, so of course Paula is telling him that, that she is not sure about it, and she doesn't know if she can stay the night at his house, and then she ends up going home, as we see in that one scene at the beginning. And so we just see, but I mean, it's the same thing for, I think, even since episode 1, it's been the same thing. Like, she's not sure about it. He's not sure about it. He does something, she doesn't like it, and then they separate, and then they get back. It's sort of the same thing over and over again. But I mean, that's what, relationship is, I guess. And especially with them two, it's really unique, right? Because he was her client for months. So, I think it maybe even is a year for that season where that took place. But yeah, so that's an interesting storyline there. And then sort of at the end, again, like I said, they make up. And so I'll see next episode, they'll probably do something again. But yeah, it's pretty troubled waters. I mean, if all that stuff's happening now, I don't know how the relationship's going to pan out. But I want Harvey to be happy with her. I mean, he hasn't had a girlfriend really since Scotty on the show, and that was a long time ago, probably 2 or 3 seasons ago now. So, well, no, I think 2. But yeah, so anyways, and then at the very end, I wanted to mention this, we can be scared together. Harvey said that, and I thought that was really good, really sympathetic thing there. And he said, I'm not the therapist, but isn't that how every relationship is? Or isn't that how you feel in every relationship? Something like that. And we can be scared together, and then of course they make up. So I thought that was really good for Harvey to do. Now in that scene, I was thinking that Harvey was going to go off on her and say something because he was so upset with Alex, with that whole conflict thing with Mike and Lewis and Don and everyone. But he didn't. He put that aside, and he came out and made a really good conversation there, and was able to win her back. So I think that was a really good step for Harvey to do. But that's basically the main chunk of the episode. And then of course, the very end there, where Lewis calls the therapist again, and that's sort of the very ending thing. And he phones him, and I really feel bad for this therapist, man. I mean, Lewis is just ripping on him, constantly, in this episode at least, and just insulting him and putting him down and everything. And that's just how Lewis is. And I'm sure the therapist is used to it by now. Also, I wanted to mention the 7 stages of Lewis. I love that quote. It was great. Yeah, I just love that. I just wanted to throw that out there. But anyways, back to this. So, so he calls him at the end of the show, and I was thinking, I'm like, why is he saying all this to the doctor? Like, but then of course he calls him Harvey, and that's a big deal. And it obviously shows that Lewis is unstable and really upset with Harvey again. And we've seen this before, but this might be a whole new level, honestly, because this new Alex guy tried his hardest, and now Harvey says he ditched you for me in that scene there, which is really harsh, and obviously Lewis not okay with that. So we will definitely see where this goes. But yeah, I really feel bad for the therapist in that one. But that was an interesting scene that Lewis was going off on him, and we got to see how Lewis felt about that whole situation. Really in depth there. So yeah, I think that basically concludes this one. Alright, so now let's get into the rating for this episode. So my rating for this one was 3 out of 5, and no decimal on this one, but I don't know, it wasn't my favorite. Maybe 3 for episode 3, I don't know. I didn't mean to do that, but it wasn't my favorite. Episode 1 was really good. I really love that, with the Paul and Harvey introduction there. That was really great. But yeah, it just wasn't my favorite episode. A lot of negative stuff happened in this one, but it was good. It was well done. Don't get me wrong. For me, I didn't really enjoy it that much. But I mean, 3 out of 5. It was still a good episode, good for standards of Suits. And yeah, and I am really excited for next week's episode 4. Okay, so last but not least, my favorite character for this episode, and I'm gonna have to pick Lewis in this one. I like the way his whole thing with helping Mike. I thought that was a really good character development there, showing that relationship again. I liked that he the whole therapist thing there, with his therapist and trying to get better. I love the way the honeysuckle thing. I didn't mention that in the review, but the honeysuckle with the cats and whatever with Alex, that was good. And he got off on the right foot for once in his life. Lewis actually trying to make a friend, so that was really interesting there. But yeah, I love Lewis's character week to week. Obviously, with this episode, with this series, I mean, it's obviously the most, I'd say, the most in-depth character. It's like the weirdest one. And Rick Hoffman is an amazing actor. He plays it perfectly. But yeah, so he's my favorite character for this one. And yeah, overall, good episode. Pretty good. Liked it pretty well. Yeah. So anyways, I'm excited for next week's episode of Suits Season 7. Alright, so we'll see you in next week's review.